You make too much money to feel this broke. Think about that for a second. You work hard, you earn a decent living. Maybe your house is almost paid off, maybe you've been investing for years, and yet, at the end of the month, you still find yourself wondering, where did it all go? If that sounds familiar, I don't think your biggest problem is your income. In fact, I've watched people making $50,000 struggle, and I've watched people making $250,000 struggle. Different incomes, the same habits, that's the part most people miss. We blame inflation, the economy, the price of groceries, and yes, those things matter, but they aren't the whole story. Because financial peace isn't determined only by what you earn, it's shaped by what you repeatedly do. The encouraging news is this: habits can change, which means your future can change. Today I want to share 7 money habits that quietly keep many Christians from building wealth, enjoying financial peace, and becoming faithful stewards of what God has entrusted to them. Some of these habits are so common, you may not even realize you're doing them. I know, because I've made more than one of these mistakes myself. And here's what finally changed the way I think about money. The biggest financial mistakes usually aren't the ones that keep us awake at night. They're the small habits we repeat without thinking. One of the habits we're about to talk about may have become so normal, you don't even notice it anymore. But once you do, you can't unsee it. And that one realization could change the next 10 years of your financial life. Because money isn't the goal, faithfulness is. Let's begin. The first habit, let me paint a picture for you. It's Friday. You just got paid. You check your bank account and think, this month we're finally going to get ahead. Then life starts happening. You fill the gas tank. You stop at the grocery store. Your granddaughter has a birthday. Your wife reminds you that the water heater has been making a strange noise. You grab lunch because it's been a busy day. Amazon drops off a package you forgot you ordered. None of those things feels irresponsible. In fact, most of them are perfectly reasonable. Then 2 weeks later, you look at your account and think, how did we end up right back where we started? The answer usually isn't one big mistake. It's drift, not financial disaster. Financial drift. And drift is dangerous because you don't notice it while it's happening. A boat doesn't wake up one morning miles off course. It gets there a few inches at a time. Money works the same way. One unplanned purchase doesn't change your future. Neither do 2 or 5. But years of spending without intention quietly move you farther away from the life you were hoping to build. I wish someone had explained this to me years ago. Money is always moving. The only question is whether you're directing it or simply watching it go by. That's why I don't think of a budget as a spreadsheet anymore. I think of it as a plan for faithfulness. Proverbs says, the plans of the diligent lead surely to abundance. I've noticed something about that verse. God doesn't promise abundance to people who earn the most. He commends people who plan. That's encouraging, because you may not be able to control your income this month, but you can control your intention. Before your next paycheck arrives, spend 15 quiet minutes making a plan. Not a perfect plan, just an intentional one. Decide what you'll give, what you'll save, what you'll invest, what you'll spend, then stick to it as best you can. Here's what surprised me. When I started telling my money where to go, I stopped wondering where it had gone. That's when I realized something. Financial peace doesn't begin with a bigger paycheck. It begins with a better plan, and that's a change every one of us can make. The second habit is a little harder to recognize, because almost everyone does it. The next time you shop for a car, pay attention to the first question the salesperson asks. It probably won't be, how much do you want to spend? Instead, they'll ask, what monthly payment are you comfortable with? At first, that sounds like they're trying to help, but something important just happened. The conversation quietly shifted. Instead of talking about the price, you're talking about the payment. And those aren't the same thing. Once you start thinking in monthly payments, almost anything begins to feel affordable. A nicer vehicle, a bigger television, new furniture, the vacation you've been dreaming about. After all, it's only another $80 a month. Or maybe it's $150 or $300. One payment by itself usually isn't the problem. The problem is that payments have a way of collecting. A car payment, a phone payment, a streaming subscription, a gym membership you forgot to cancel. Before long, your paycheck has been promised to everyone else before you even receive it. I've learned that every monthly payment does something. It narrows your future. It gives you fewer choices, less flexibility, less margin. That's why Proverbs says, the borrower is slave to the lender. I've always found that verse interesting. It doesn't say the borrower is evil. It doesn't say debt is unforgivable. It simply reminds us that debt changes the relationship. It limits freedom. And freedom is one of the greatest financial gifts you can have. Freedom to help your kids when they need it. Freedom to bless your church. Freedom to retire when the time is right. Freedom to sleep well at night. These days, before I make a major purchase, I try to ask myself a different question. Not, can I afford the payment? But, what will this payment keep me from doing? That one question has changed the way I spend money. Because every dollar you commit today is a dollar that can't serve another purpose tomorrow. Maybe that's investing. Maybe it's generosity. Maybe it's building the emergency fund you've always wanted. Money can only go in one direction, so choose its direction carefully. Here's what I've come to believe. The goal isn't to eliminate every payment. The goal is to protect your freedom. Because when you have margin, you have choices. And when you have choices, you have peace. That's why I think this second habit is so dangerous. It doesn't just cost you money, it quietly costs you options. The third habit is one I understand all too well. It's the habit of waiting. Not because you're lazy, because you're trying to be responsible. You tell yourself, we'll start investing after things settle down. When the house is paid off, when the kids are on their own, when I get that raise. At first, those reasons sound completely reasonable. In fact, I've used some of them myself. But have you noticed something? Life rarely settles down. There's always another expense. The tires wear out, the dog needs to go to the vet. A grandchild has a birthday, the roof starts leaking. There's always a reason to wait. One day turns into 1 year. 1 year quietly becomes 10. I've talked with people who thought they had missed their chance because they didn't start investing in their 20s. Maybe you've had that thought. If you have, let me encourage you. Don't compare yourself to someone who started 30 years ago. Compare yourself to the version of you that keeps putting it off. That's the comparison that matters. Jesus told a parable about servants who were entrusted with different amounts. One received 5 talents, another received 2, another received 1. What has always struck me about that story is that God never expected them to start with the same amount. He expected them to be faithful with what they had. I think that's still true today. God isn't asking you to manage someone else's income. He's asking you to faithfully manage yours. Maybe right now that's $50 a month. Maybe it's $100. Maybe it's more. The amount isn't the point. Faithfulness is. Here's something I wish someone had told me years ago. You don't become an investor when your account reaches a certain number. You become an investor the day you decide your future matters enough to prepare for it. That decision changes something inside you. You stop saying, I'll save what's left over. And you begin saying, I'll save first, then I'll live on the rest. That's a completely different way of thinking. This week, here's my challenge. Don't wait until you can do everything. Do one thing. Increase your retirement contribution by 1%. Set up an automatic transfer of $25 a week. Open the investment account you've been meaning to open. Take one step. Small steps, repeated faithfully, have a way of becoming remarkable over time. I've learned that financial peace doesn't usually arrive all at once. It grows quietly every time you choose your future over another excuse to wait. The fourth habit doesn't usually begin in your wallet. It begins in your eyes. You see someone else's life, and suddenly your own doesn't seem quite good enough. Maybe your neighbor pulls into the driveway with a brand new truck. A friend from church posts pictures from a 2-week vacation. Someone you graduated with remodels their kitchen. A family member buys a vacation home. You weren't unhappy 5 minutes ago, but now something has changed. Comparison has a quiet way of stealing contentment. And once contentment is gone, wise financial decisions often follow. Not because we're trying to be irresponsible, because we're trying to keep up. The trouble is, there's no finish line. There will always be someone with a nicer house, a newer car, a bigger retirement account, a better vacation. If your goal is to catch everyone else, you'll spend the rest of your life running. I remember talking with someone who had just bought a beautiful new vehicle. A few weeks later, I asked how they liked it. They smiled and said, "It's great." Then they pointed across the parking lot. "But now I kind of wish I'd bought that one." I laughed, not because they were foolish, because I've done the same thing. Maybe you have too. Comparison never tells us to be grateful. It always whispers, just a little more. The Apostle Paul understood something our culture desperately needs to hear. He wrote, "I have learned to be content whatever the circumstances." I love one word in that verse. Learned. Contentment isn't a personality trait, it's a discipline. It's something we practice. Here's a question that's helped me more than I expected. Before making a significant purchase, I ask myself, would I still want this if no one else ever saw it? That's a surprisingly difficult question. Sometimes the answer is yes. Wonderful. Buy it and enjoy it. God has richly given us many things to enjoy, but sometimes the honest answer is no. I wasn't buying it because I needed it, I was buying it because I wanted to feel successful. There's a big difference. I've noticed something over the years. Some of the most financially secure people I know don't look wealthy at all. They drive dependable cars, they live in comfortable, not extravagant homes. They aren't trying to impress anyone. They're quietly building freedom, and I think that's a better goal. Because wealth isn't about looking successful. It's about having the freedom to live generously, serve faithfully, and sleep peacefully. Here's what I'd like you to do this week. The next time you're tempted to buy something you weren't planning on, don't ask, "Can I afford it?" Ask, "Am I buying this because it adds value to my life? Or because I'm comparing my life to someone else's?" That one question can save you far more money than clipping coupons ever will. I've come to believe that comparison is one of the most expensive habits we can have. Not because it empties our bank account overnight, because it quietly convinces us that what God has already provided isn't enough, and that's a debt no purchase can ever repay. The fifth habit. The fifth habit is so common that most of us don't even notice it. We get a raise, and within a few months, it feels like we never got one. Have you ever experienced that? You look at your paycheck and think, where did the extra money go? It didn't disappear, it quietly became part of your lifestyle. Maybe you started eating out a little more often, maybe you upgraded your phone, you started streaming one more service, bought a newer vehicle, took a nicer vacation. None of those decisions is wrong by itself. That's what makes this habit so difficult to recognize. It's rarely one big purchase. It's 100 little upgrades. Over time, they become your new normal. Years ago, I heard someone say, "The quickest way to stay broke is to spend every raise before you receive it." That sentence has stayed with me, because it's true. Most of us don't plan for lifestyle inflation. It just happens. We slowly raise our standard of living without ever raising our standard of stewardship. The Apostle Paul wrote something that has challenged me for years. "I have learned the secret of being content in any and every situation." Think about that. Paul didn't say he learned the secret of having more. He learned the secret of needing less. That's a very different kind of wealth. One of the healthiest financial habits my wife and I have tried to develop is this. Whenever our income increases, we try not to ask, "What can we buy?" We ask, "What opportunity has God just given us?" Maybe it's an opportunity to increase our giving. Maybe it's an opportunity to invest a little more for the future. Maybe it's finally time to build the emergency fund we've been talking about. Sometimes we enjoy part of it too. There's nothing wrong with celebrating God's blessings. The key is deciding where the raise will go before it quietly disappears. I've noticed something over the years. The happiest people I know aren't usually the ones with the highest income. They're the ones with the most margin. Margin to help a friend. Margin to bless a grandchild. Margin to weather an unexpected expense without panic. Margin to say yes when God opens a door. That's real freedom. Here's something I'd encourage you to do. The next time your income goes up, don't let the decision happen by accident. Sit down with your spouse, pray about it. Decide together where that increase will go before the first paycheck arrives. Because every raise is more than extra money. It's another opportunity to become a more faithful steward. And I've found that faithful stewards rarely wonder where the raise went. They decided long before it arrived. The sixth habit. The sixth habit isn't really about money, it's about pride. And I don't mean the loud, arrogant kind. I mean the quiet kind. The kind that says, "We'll figure it out." I don't want to bother anyone. I should know this by now. I don't want people to know we're struggling. I've met people who spent years trying to solve financial problems by themselves, not because help wasn't available, because they were ashamed to ask. Can I encourage you with something? There is no shame in learning. There is no shame in asking questions. There is no shame in saying, "I don't understand investing." Or, "I need help making a budget." Or, "Can someone explain Social Security to me?" In fact, I think that's one of the wisest things a person can say. The book of Proverbs tells us, "Plans fail for lack of counsel, but with many advisors, they succeed." I've always appreciated the simplicity of that verse. God never expected us to figure everything out on our own. He gave us His Word, He gave us the church, He gave us wise people who have walked this road before us. One conversation can save you years of frustration. One good book can change the way you think about money. One trusted financial planner can help you avoid mistakes that cost thousands of dollars. One honest conversation with your spouse can bring peace where there has been tension for years. I've learned that wisdom grows much faster in community than it does in isolation. Here's a question I ask myself from time to time. Who is speaking into my financial life? If the answer is nobody, that's probably not God's design. Here's a simple challenge. This week, identify one area where you've been avoiding help. Maybe it's estate planning, maybe it's investing, maybe it's finally creating a will. Maybe it's simply admitting that you and your spouse need to sit down and have an honest conversation about money. Then take one step, make the phone call, schedule the meeting, buy the book, start the conversation. Don't let pride keep you from the peace that wisdom can bring. I've come to believe that asking for help isn't a sign of weakness. It's one of the clearest signs of maturity, because mature people aren't afraid to learn. They're afraid of staying stuck, and God has never asked us to stay stuck. The seventh habit. I saved the most important habit for last, because if you miss this one, the other 6 won't matter nearly as much. Here it is. Forgetting who really owns it all. It's easy to think of our paycheck as our paycheck, our retirement account, our home, our savings, our investments. After all, we worked for them. We sacrificed for them. We stayed late. We put in the overtime. And there's truth in that. But Scripture invites us to see something even bigger. Everything we have is ultimately a gift from God. The ability to work, the opportunities we've been given, the wisdom we've gained, the health to earn a living. Every good thing has its source in Him. That changes the question. Instead of asking, what do I want to do with my money? We begin asking, Lord, how would you have me manage what you've entrusted to me? That's what stewardship is. And I've found that stewardship brings freedom. When you see yourself as an owner, there's pressure. You have to protect it, grow it, control it. But when you see yourself as a steward, you realize your responsibility isn't to have the most. It's to be faithful with what you've been given. Jesus said, whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. I've always loved that verse because it gives me hope. God isn't waiting for me to have more. He's inviting me to be faithful today, with today's paycheck, today's opportunities, and today's decisions. Maybe you've watched this video and realized you've been drifting. Maybe you've recognized yourself in more than one of these habits. If that's you, don't walk away discouraged. Walk away encouraged, because none of these habits were formed overnight, and they won't change overnight, but they can change one decision at a time, one paycheck at a time, 1 month at a time, 1 year at a time. I've learned something over the years. The people I admire most aren't necessarily the ones with the largest investment accounts. They're the ones who have peace. They live within their means. They give generously. They sleep well. They're able to help others when there's a need. They're content. Not because they have everything, because they've learned that Christ is enough. That's the kind of wealth I want. And I hope it's the kind of wealth you want too. So this week, don't try to change your entire financial life. Just take the next faithful step. Make the budget. Increase the retirement contribution. Pay a little extra on the debt. Start the conversation with your spouse. Ask for help. Whatever your next step is, take it. Because here's what I want you to remember when this video is over. You are not behind God's ability to work in your life. As long as He's given you today, you have time to become a wiser steward than you were yesterday. And that is a future worth building. If this conversation encouraged you, I'd love to have you join our community by subscribing to Wisdom and Wealth. Every week we talk about money, retirement, stewardship, and finishing life well. Not because money is the goal, because faithfulness is. I'll see you next week.